right. Good morning to any replayers. If you're a replayer, don't forget that you can still participate by tapping on the screen. If there's anything that you like, you can share this broadcast with other folks. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter or Snapchat if you have questions around finances and your path to financial freedom that you want to ask. Hey, good morning to anybody who's able to join live, and welcome to the daily Money Habits broadcast. So I do a Money Habits broadcast every single day, 7 days a week, to basically help people develop better money habits. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means. And so at 10 a.m. Central Time. So today what I want to talk about is success. Talk about success on Saturday. It's like really figuring out whether what you're doing is contributing to meeting your success, right? So defining what success means to you in terms of the money habits or any type of financial goals is very, very important, because it's the one thing that's going to get you to change your behavior. So changing your behavior and taking action and developing good habits is actually it's an extremely difficult process for most people. So having a success in mind, having some sort of financial metric in mind, is going to help you make progress towards it, right? So what does success mean when it comes to finances? Usually there's a time frame and a target, right? So you want to say, I want to have X by Y. So X could be a number of, whether it's a goal to pay off a certain amount of debt by a certain amount of time, and then you can do, so having a certain amount of money by a certain time, maybe having a certain amount of cash flow. The things that I focus on is cash flow, taxation, and investments. So having a certain net worth at a given time. So when you are setting those financial goals, make sure you are formulating them in terms of a numerical target and some time frame. And that way you can work backwards and say, what am I doing today to help me achieve that goal? And how am I going to change what I do and develop a better habit to do that? Because I think nothing motivates more than realizing that you are you're on track to doing that. The other thing I want you to realize is that your financial goals may change over time, right? So when you're in your early stages of financial life, you're probably mostly focusing on earning a salary or earning a certain amount, and maybe the acquisition of certain things that you need in life when it's the first sort of steps of independence. So you're living on your own, you can afford a car. It's about affordability of certain things. Once you establish those, you may be looking towards debt repayment. So a lot of people fall into either debt repayment, whether it's student loans or some debt that accumulated getting on their own, and or a big purchase, right? So maybe you want a bigger car, a new car, or a used car, or a house, right? There's things that people target. A lot of times there's a lot of cost associated with starting a family, whether it's, and people do spend a lot of money on some of these. So they do, early on, you're kind of setting these goals where it's like, okay, I'm trying to save up X for this. And it's a very specific, usually it's a spending target. And then as you go further, you start maybe recognizing that you either want freedom of your time, so you're trying to create cash flow, whether it's from a business, a cash flow from business, enough capital assets to be able to get the return to support some of your lifestyle, or retirement, whatever that may be. And I think that those will change, right? So you may have a short-term goal. And I usually think like you should have some like 3 to 5 year goal to say, okay, in 3 years, I want to be here financially, and then work backwards and say, what's it going to take? So make sure you do set those targets and a time frame, because it'll allow you to work backwards and say, is this realistic? What do I have to change in my financial equation to be able to get to that level? So that's really the message for today, is defining what success means to you. what metrics, what are you going to measure? And you need to start measuring on a, on a more frequent basis, and then always do an annual checkup. But some of those metrics you need to figure out, okay, if you're a cash flow challenge, you need to figure out how did I affect my cash flow, what's coming in and what's coming out, and tracking that. And then if you're doing your debt repayment, make sure you, first of all, you do a sort of a rational plan. I've talked about debt repayment a lot today, and I feel like people focus on that, but then they don't take advantage of a lot of investing and tax deferred plans, instead of just they sort of focus not on the overall picture. So the total picture, I want you to take a look at and see, where do I want to be in 3 to 5 years. And for myself, I change my my goals over time, and so that's why I'm reflecting on some of that, where at some point it was about debt repayment or getting a certain salary or cash flow, acquisition of houses, and then it shifted to net worth, right? And I really started focusing or thinking about net worth. And again, the minute you start thinking about it and taking that into account, you start making different decisions, right? You start saying, okay, how's that going to impact my goal if I follow this path? And now I'm thinking, okay, what do I want my cash flow to be in, not just in retirement, but in general, right? So I'm exploring different ideas and business models that'll help me do that will change my cash flow and create and be a revenue sort of producing activity. How can I bring value about? And I don't need that immediately, right? So cash flow sometimes, the reason I can focus on building something to provide that cash flow is because I've accomplished some of those goals earlier on. I think, so again, my sequencing is what I share with people. You can probably get it many different ways, but at some point you're going to want to hit some of those goals, whether it's debt repayment, whether it's cash flowing, whether it's the net worth. And those goals can impact one another depending on what you focus on. So yeah, bottom line is define your success, define the time frame and target, and figure out what it is, and then write it down, right? Because the other thing is people kind of get a very vague idea of what they want and they don't write it down, and then so you can't check yourself. I've written it down, and even like 2 years or 2 later, I'm like, wait a minute, where was I? What was my starting point, right? Like, so you have to also celebrate the progress that you make. And then you can, because it'll reinforce the good behavior that you've developed, the good habits when you see results, right? When you see results in your financial life, when you see, wait a minute, like I'm not feeling as anxious about money, I have grown my net worth, or I've repaid those debts, and when you have those accomplishments, it'll reinforce the money habits that you've developed and the money behaviors that you've done. And again, it may be very different from what you used to do, and then may be very different from the people around you. So be very clear on your goals, be clear on your target and your time frame. Thanks a lot for anybody that was able to join. Again, if you have any questions, you can always ask me on the broadcast, 10 a.m. every day, 7 days a week. And then find me on Twitter, and you can find me on Snapchat. And I'm working on other channels too, but one thing at a time. You can only learn so much. I'm also work on my money habits when it comes on my money habits and my social media habits when it comes to it, when it comes to learning and being effective in the world. So thanks a lot for joining. I'll be here tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central Time, because I'm on 7 days a week. So thank you. Bye.